As he's grabbing the bag, shots are fired.
Who shoots the shots that are fired?
Michael Boatwright.
Robert Allen, one of 4 men convicted in connection with the 2018 murder of XXXTentacion, was released from prison in October 2023 after accepting a plea deal in exchange for testifying against his co-defendants. Both before and during his release, he provided police, prosecutors, and a jury with the most detailed first-hand account ever given by anyone who was inside that Dodge Journey on the day of the shooting. The following is a breakdown of what Robert Allen said and what the consequences were for everyone involved. On June 18, 2018, Yase Dwayne Ricardo Onfroy, the rapper known as XXXTentacion, withdrew approximately $50,000 in cash from a Bank of America branch in South Florida. He placed the money inside a Louis Vuitton bag before driving to Riva Motorsports, a motorcycle and watercraft dealership located in Deerfield Beach, Florida. His friend Leonard Kerr was seated in the passenger seat of his black BMW i8. Onfroy was just 20 years old. He had gone to the dealership to look at motorcycles. He would never leave. Earlier that year, Onfroy had been generating headlines for both his music and the legal troubles surrounding him. His debut album had recently been released, and his fan base tracked his every move online. He was the kind of public figure whose car could be identified from a single Instagram post, and whose daily routine was visible enough that a man who had spotted him at a probation office months earlier had quietly filed that information away for future use. They had spent the day driving around South Florida armed with guns, masks, and a shared intention to rob whoever they could find. The 4 men were Dedrick DaVinci Williams, Michael Boatwright, Trayvon Newsom, and Robert Allen. Williams was 22 years old. Boatwright was 22. Allen was 22. Newsom was the youngest of the group at just 20 years old, the same age as the man they were about to kill. Williams went by the nickname Chucky. He had a prior criminal history that included arrests for grand theft auto, burglary, assault, and cocaine possession, and he was actively on probation at the time of the incident. Outside of his criminal activity, he worked as a tattoo artist and was a father of 4 children. On that particular day, Williams was behind the wheel of the SUV, and it was he who first spotted the black BMW i8 sitting in the Riva Motorsports parking lot. He had previously encountered Onfroy at a probation office and recognized his car from posts on Instagram. Williams brought it to the group's attention, pulling up Onfroy's Instagram page on his phone and confirming that the car in the photos matched the one parked in front of them. That was the moment the group identified their target before anyone stepped out of the vehicle. The Dodge Journey they were driving had been rented the day before. Robbing people with a dedicated vehicle had been Williams' idea. However, because Allen was the only member of the group with a valid driver's license, they recruited a woman named Tony Robinson to handle the rental on their behalf.
Whose idea was it to rent the vehicle?
Dedrick.
You have to speak up nice and loud.
Dedrick.
He aimed it straight toward Onroy. Meanwhile, Newsom moved in from the same side, reaching for Onroy's gold chain. When he couldn't pull it free, he circled around to the passenger side, got into the BMW, and grabbed the Louis Vuitton bag holding the $50,000. Kerr, sitting in the passenger seat, was told not to move, but instead, he ran down the road, away from the car, managing to escape. Moments later, Newsom returned with the bag. At that point, the robbery itself was over.
Did at any point all 4 of you expect to be armed with a firearm?
Yes.
Okay. And what was the purpose of having a mask or masks?
Moments later, 3 shots struck Onroy in the neck. 2 of the bullets remained lodged in his body, while another broke apart. The impact affected his upper left lung and passed close to a major artery. Onroy was unarmed and made no move to resist. By the time the shots were fired, the bag had already been taken. He was later pronounced dead at Broward Health North Hospital at 4:51 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The 4 men fled the scene in a Dodge Journey, crashing it during their escape before eventually returning to Allen's house on 17th Court. Williams left separately, taking an Uber back. Once everyone regrouped at the house, they opened a bag.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, all 3 of them had.
Inside, they divided the cash into 4 shares. Williams, Boatwright, and Newsom each took $15,000, while Allen, who had remained in the car, received $5,000. Boatwright argued that Allen hadn't played a large enough role to deserve an equal cut. The firearms left with Boatwright and Newsom, along with the Louis Vuitton bag, the bank slips, and the key fob to Enroy's vehicle. During the drive back from Riviera Beach, they had already seen the news on their phones Enroy had died.
As he's grabbing the bag, shots are fired.
Who shoots the shots that are fired?
Michael Boatwright,
Where does he shoot him from? What side of the car?
driver.
So if XXX is in the driver's seat and Michael Boatwright is in the driver's side, the shots are coming onto XXX's left side or right side? Which side?
Yes.
That same day and into the next, the group's own phones documented what followed. Videos uploaded to social media showed Williams, Boatwright, and Newsom holding stacks of $100 bills, celebrating, smiling, and moving like nothing had happened. Just hours after the incident, Dedrick Williams was taken into custody 48 hours later during a traffic stop in Pompano Beach. He was still wearing orange sandals and a white tank top, the exact same outfit seen in the Riva Motorsport security footage, and even in his Instagram post from earlier that day. He wore the same clothes and left every post intact. Boatwright was picked up on July 5th on unrelated drug charges, and while he was already behind bars, the murder warrant reached him 5 days later, on July 10th. Allen was arrested in Georgia on July 26th, more than a month after everything unfolded. He had traveled to Georgia with Boatwright before they eventually parted ways. On August 7th, Trayvon Newsom surrendered at his attorney's office, becoming the last of the four to be apprehended. All four were charged with first-degree premeditated murder, along with armed robbery involving a firearm. By July 2018, a grand jury had formally indicted them. The case itself was heavily documented from the moment Williams entered the dealership to the second the SUV disappeared down the road. Detectives had captured footage of the suspects purchasing masks, waiting in the parking lot, executing the ambush, and fleeing the scene. But what investigators still needed was the inside version, the decisions made in real time, the conversations inside that vehicle, and the reason why a robbery that had already been completed still ended with a 20-year-old losing his life in the driver's seat. That missing piece had to come from someone inside the car. That person was Robert Allen. On paper, Allen appeared to be the least aggressive figure in the Dodge journey. He had remained inside the vehicle, accepted the smallest share of the money, and had even voiced before the plan unfolded that it was a terrible idea. But at the same time, he confirmed Enroy's identity inside the store, assisted in organizing the rental vehicle, accepted the $5,000, and stayed silent for weeks afterward. None of that made him innocent, and prosecutors understood that clearly. What it did make him, though, was valuable, because if he chose to speak openly and truthfully, his account had the potential to solidify 3 first-degree murder convictions. Getting him to that point became the responsibility of a detective named John Sergio, inside an interrogation room in Broward County, an environment Allen would later describe as triggering his claustrophobia. The process began. The footage of that interrogation has since circulated widely online. It opens like any formal recorded statement, the oath, introductions, and confirmation of Allen's attorney being present. Then Sergio, calm and deliberate, begins at the very start, working step by step to uncover the full story.
The easiest way to start talking about the case you're under arrest for, which is XXX's case, let's talk about the car, the Dodge Journey.
What followed over the next half hour unfolded like a slow excavation of the truth. Allen didn't come out with everything at once. He hesitated, leaning on phrases like, "I think," and "I guess," whenever he was pressed for details. Detective Sergio didn't let that slide. He challenged him again and again, making it clear that small inconsistencies would make the bigger story impossible to trust. He reminded Allen that investigators already had fingerprints from the vehicle, that surveillance footage placed him inside the Driftwood apartment complex getting into the Dodge Journey, and that Dedrick Williams had already shared his own version of events. Gradually, piece by piece, Allen began to fill in the gaps. He explained how Williams arranged a rental, how Tony Robinson's name had to be used on the app because the others couldn't qualify. He described gathering at Williams' house before heading to Riva, sitting around watching TV, and a conversation that eventually turned toward masks. He walked through the drive along Dixie Highway toward the dealership, recalling the exact moment Williams spotted the BMW and said, That's him. He also admitted he was the one told to go inside and confirm the identity.
All right. What kind of gun did Boatwright have?
Something like small, real small.
Okay, well, like that, like a rifle or a handgun?
Right.
He went further, identifying the weapons involved and placing them back at Williams' house before everything unfolded. He confirmed who was carrying what, removing any uncertainty about roles. He described a moment in the parking lot when Williams focused on the jewelry, bracelets, chains, rings, and how that became part of the conversation. Inside the car, Allen said he spoke up, warning that the situation was a bad idea, but no one listened. His words didn't change the course that had already been set.
Okay, what happens is when they see him?
Check the cuts him off.
The interrogation provided investigators with a framework of confession, but it wasn't until nearly 4 years later that it was fully brought to life. On August 12, 2022, Allen pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and armed robbery with a firearm. In exchange for his complete cooperation and testimony, the first-degree premeditated murder charge, one that carried a mandatory life sentence, was dropped. The agreement was clear. Allen would one day regain his freedom, while the others likely would not. The joint trial began on February 7, 2023, in Broward County Circuit Court before Judge Michael A. Hewson. Allen took the stand the very next day, February 8th, and remained there through February 13th, delivering 4 full days of testimony. What he provided was something the surveillance footage alone could never fully capture. Cameras had shown masked figures moving around a car, but Allen gave those figures names and identities. He explained the planning that took place inside the vehicle, the decision to wait, and how Williams directed the operation from the driver's seat. He detailed how Boatwright and Newsom prepared themselves, how the BMW was blocked in, and how quickly they moved once everything began. That was the structure prosecutors presented from the very beginning, and Allen's testimony was designed to reinforce it point by point, detail by detail. He placed Boatwright directly at the driver's side window, holding the rifle, locking in a version of events that the jury could follow step by step.
Okay, so you guys had to talk about something.
It was basically me talking to him. I was just, I'm gonna go to jail for the rest of my life. They're like, you'll be all right. It's not gonna happen to you.
Newsom moved for the chain first, then shifted his focus to the bag. Moments later, he returned to the SUV with it secured, and that's when the shots were fired, without any clear provocation. Allen stated it plainly. As Newsom was grabbing the bag, the shots rang out. He identified Michael Boatwright.
Okay, so what was in the bag?
Money,
How much?
$50,000.
As the one who fired them, estimating that 2 or 3 shots were discharged. He explained that Onroy was positioned on the left side of the vehicle and said the entire confrontation unfolded in roughly 3 minutes. According to his testimony, it was during the drive away from Riviera Beach that the group learned Infroy had died. At that moment, Boatwright turned the music up. Defense attorneys spent days trying to dismantle Allen's credibility. They labeled him a 12-time felon, a habitual liar acting out of self-preservation. They argued that his story had shifted between his 2018 interrogation and his 2023 courtroom testimony, suggesting he adjusted details to align with what prosecutors needed. Boatwright's attorney, in particular, was relentlessly pressing Allen on every inconsistency, every hesitation, every I think, and I guess he had used years earlier. But Allen didn't break under that pressure. He openly admitted that he wanted a reduced sentence. He acknowledged that, by most standards, he wasn't a reliable person. Still, he also expressed remorse, saying he was trying to do what he could to bring some form of justice to Onroy's family, friends, and supporters. At the same time, the defense had confronted difficult reality. Nearly every specific detail Allen provided could be cross-checked against physical evidence, and it consistently aligned. DNA recovered from the black neoprene masks purchased at the dealership and used during the robbery matched Dedrick Williams, with an extremely rare statistical probability, rarer than 1 in 831 octillion. DNA connected to Boatwright on a second mask produced odds even more extraordinary, rarer than 1 in 929 nonillion. Those figures were presented in court by forensic analyst Nicole Onnett of the Broward County Crime Lab.